As we always do on the Better Blokes podcast, season 2, episode 2. Jess, what one piece of advice would you give other people that are looking to be 1% better every day?
I'd probably say just be a little bit more curious. So whether that's learning something new on YouTube or asking more questions to people who know more things about certain topics than you and what have you. And I think probably one thing that's probably stopped me in the past, and I like to try and do more, is I guess realise and be honest to myself as to how much I do know and how much I guess I should be I guess when that point of when I should ask more and that kind of thing, because I think we always have a little bit of a facade as to that we know certain things, and realistically there's so much knowledge to be learned from other people and other sources and what have you. So just having that curiosity and I guess almost honesty as well, just say, I should probably know a little bit more about this topic and go learn a little bit more. So it applies to absolutely everything, whether it's your work and mental health and relationships, so much. So yeah,
So it sounds a bit like you just want to check your ego, stay a little bit humble, and just ask those questions to.
Yeah, 100%. I think I actually had a real young kid come up to me, kind of recognise me through photography and whatever, and just blasted me with questions. And I was like, I actually had bad respect for him because I was like, I wouldn't have the confidence to go up to someone and just ask that many questions and whatever. And I was just like, mate, like, how good is that he just didn't really care about an ego or whatever. He was just happy to just sit in the slot and ask questions. And I was just like, cool. That's awesome. So,
and it's funny because like that being curious is sort of, I guess, the crux of this podcast in a lot of ways. It's really having just guys give that sort of small bit of advice to other blokes to, or look, honestly, some of the people that listen to the podcast are female as well, so I shouldn't be gender biased, but like honestly, just that little bit of advice to anyone, and feeling like you can just ask those questions and you can be curious. And we just, last week we heard from Josh and he was talking about, journaling, and we asked him after the show, do your friends know that you do it? And he said no. And they do now. Yeah. But that's one of those things that we were sort of saying, like, be curious about your mental health and that kind of stuff, because it can obviously, it can pay huge dividends in just asking the question.
100%. How many times have we all been in a conversation where someone's talking about something and you have no idea what they're talking about, which is like a huge crux of this conversation, and you're just sitting there nodding, going, yep, cool. Yeah, no, sounds great. Yeah. And that stops you from like diving deeper into that conversation or learning more about that topic or about that person that you're then having that chat with. Like, so it stops so many different things. So
yeah, definitely, big time. Next question, who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Jess, Bonde. Grew up on the Northwest Coast. Went to school here in Ulverstone, Devonport, and then university in Launceston. Graduated as an outdoor education teacher, but then realised I wanted to go do a little bit of travel first. So the idea was to go work on super yachts for 1 year. Ended up absolutely loving it and stayed there for 4. And then was like, I'm definitely not going to go back to teaching ever. So I then had a bit of a passion for photography. So I just started traveling and then taking photos, and then Instagram was becoming more of a thing. And then I kind of fell into this photography career, I guess. And then, ended up being, I guess, labelled an influencer and from building a following and that kind of thing. But, so now I create content for a lot of different brands, tourism boards, all that kind of stuff. So photos, video, also manage socials and stuff for other brands and that kind of stuff. That's probably about it.
And how does your obviously the world of being an influencer or a content creator is pretty new. Like, although it's been around for a while, like it's still sort of a learning space for a lot of people. Back to your 1%er, how did you sort of adopt that curious nature to get into the game, and where did you learn and who'd you learn from, etc.?
Yeah, well, I guess even just with photography, like I hate being bad at things. So trying to like YouTube absolutely everything that I could about photography and trying to get better through that. And then again, like I had no idea about business. I was like 23, 24 or something, traveling the world in a van on absolutely no money, just taking photos of my adventures and then posting that. And then that was at the start of the whole van life craze and that kind of thing. And that started getting big, and I started getting big with van life and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I've totally forgotten what the question was, but I think that the curiosity sides of things was always like the photography and the travel aspect as well, like going to new places, shooting new places, getting better at that kind of thing. What was the question? Sorry.
Yeah, the question was simply, and you're basically answering it right now.
Yeah, on the right track, yeah.
Yeah. How do you apply your 1%er to your daily life? So how do you apply that sort of curiosity to, you know, where you are like now and even in the past?
Yeah, I guess it's always changing in the world of social media too. So you kind of like need to kind of keep your finger on the pulse and kind of adapt with the times and stuff as well. So, yeah, you kind of have to be curious enough to dive deep into that aspect and figure out what is trending and how do you stay relevant.
Changes rapidly enough that you have to, yeah, exactly, stay curious. As soon as you go, yeah, I know this, it'll change and it's not relevant anymore.
Yeah, you're toast.
Yeah. Is it nerve-wracking waking up each day just knowing that, you know, it can be quick like that change, or are you on top of it enough that it just...
To be honest, probably when I was starting, I was probably a little bit more nervous. Right now, I definitely know that I'm not on the pulse essentially, and I'm kind of making decisions within my brand and the things that I want to be doing to focus on those things I do enjoy doing more. So for me, I really love photography, like going out and shooting and creating like cool still photography, like makes me just so happy. And it gets me like really fired up, whereas short-based video content does not. So obviously the whole world is going towards like reels and all that kind of stuff. So for me, it's not my passion. I can do it, but I know if I was to do it full time and kind of like try and grow with that trend, that I probably wouldn't be overly happy.
Suck the life out of you probably. Doing something you're not really super passionate about.
100%. And I guess that's another thing that I've always tried to do is just chase that happiness and do those things that do make me happier.
Sounds like your brand's now big enough though that you can sort of set your own themes.
Yeah, to a degree. Like I think that you still have to play the game. And I think that's one frustrating thing when you are a content creator / influencer, whatever. You're at the mercy of an algorithm. So you kind of have to do those things to stay relevant and keep on growing. For me, I guess I've probably moved back to Tassie and have some clients that I'm creating content for monthly. So I don't necessarily need Instagram or socials in general. But in saying that, I've definitely fallen off a bit of a cliff when it comes to like tourism work and that kind of thing, purely for that fact that I haven't been posting on social media as much. So it's a bit of a catch-22 where I don't necessarily enjoy posting short form video, but at the same time, because I'm not posting short form video all the time, I'm probably not getting the same clients as what I used to be getting.
Yep.
So it just depends on which direction you want to go and if you're happy with that direction.
Pretty good. You've stuck to your guns there on what you want, and you've just made that work. There'd have been some crossroads where you could have gone down that path because it might have been financially better, or it might have been, at the time easier.
Yeah.
But you've done what you wanted to do, and you've just gone ahead with that. Sometimes at a cost, maybe, but
yeah, for sure.
Not personally.
Yeah. Well, again, that's the kind of the seesawing game of life, isn't it? We kind of mix that happiness and going and doing things for money. So trying to find that balance of what's going to work.
Yeah. So my next question for you, man, and you mentioned at the beginning is that you're a self-identified introvert. So for those that don't know, someone that doesn't really like sort of engaging in the big public sort of sphere. My question to you, and we'll sort of dive into it a little bit deeper than this, but superficially at a top level, how does that fly with you being an influencer and a content creator? How do you cope I guess, mentally with being an introvert in that space?
Yeah, well, I guess when I first started, it was more based around photography. So, there wasn't a whole lot of filming myself and being the front of brand and that kind of thing. It's what it is now. So it's changed so much. And realistically, like, again, when I first started, I could hide behind that photography aspect. I didn't have to kind of, be that face. So now it's changed so much that I guess, you kind of have to be a little bit more extroverted. And I can be extroverted if I try. It's obviously, it's just draining. So, like if I go and have a night out, I can be social and extrovert and whatever. But like I guess my battery life, it just gets drained pretty quick. So
being social doesn't fill your bucket. That's how I put it, because I'm similar. I'm just like, I'd much rather be doing my own thing, but I can do social stuff.
Yeah.
Just don't come out of it fully charged.
Yeah, 100%. Whereas I could go for a bushwalk and take some photos and come back I'll probably walk 22 Ks, but I'll be firing. So
yeah, no, and back onto sort of that influencer journey, I guess, and the challenges. I know now you sort of look at some of the top tier, what I would say the influencers, like your YouTubers, like your Peter McKinnon, your Matty Hapau, like those kind of guys. How do you feel that their sort of presence in that space has influenced the direction, or do you feel like the direction of that influencer space is sort of led by consumers?
good question. It's definitely shaped by the people at the top. When Peter McKinnon first came out, how many people had that same Peter McKinnon intro into like their YouTube videos where everyone was trying to be like super cinematic and like all these like shaky camera movements being, swiftly moved into like the next transition sort of thing. So it definitely gets shaped by those successful people, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's obviously people trying to keep up with the times and trying to be relevant. But at the same time, I think one of the things that probably not a lot of people realise when they're thinking of influencers is that quite often they're selling other people's products. And it's a fine line between, as an audience, we can always see through that bullshit if it's an actual product that they're going to use and they're actually genuine about that, or if it's, just a case of, they got thrown $5,000 just to go promote that product,
Yeah, buy Raycon,
Yeah, 100%. So I think if you're coming up and you want to be trying to do this, I guess one thing I would highly, highly encourage would be to create your own products and push your own stuff, build that audience around you, and they'll relate to you and they'll love you for that. And by essentially keeping to your own products and selling those, they're going to support you and buy those products. Because the moment that you go down and, you've promoted 25 different products in the last year, when you go to sell your product, it's like, well, how do we know that this is something that you're actually passionate about? You could be, it could be just the same as, the last bag of toilet paper that you're actually trying to sell. So,
next question I have is, and I'll let you guys ask some questions in a second. But, mate, how do you manage? Like, I know we talk a lot to some young people, or I do in my day job, and one of the big things that they're sort of talking about is that the mental strain that sort of social media causes on themselves, particularly when you as a content creator are focusing on that. How do you manage the mental strain of content perhaps not performing as well as you would have liked, or is it always just a smash hit, everything you make? And how do you manage that mentally?
I guess you still have to stay true to the things that you want to create content around. For me, like, if I can go out on a hike and see some epic mountains and have hopefully catch epic light, and I'm shooting that, then, some people will love it, some people won't. But if you're then building an audience around content that you don't necessarily love, or you're kind of building or creating that content for someone else, and then it still tanks, like, that's when it sucks, because you've gone out of your way to go create this content for someone else that hasn't fulfilled you, and then it's gone shit. And then again, you're not getting that fulfillment there. Whereas even if you have a piece of content that you absolutely love and it tanks, who cares? Like, you've created that and it fulfilled you at some point, you know?
Yeah. And there has to be, like, I wanted to dig a little bit more into, you know, we hear it all the time that so many young people today, like when you work in the career space, they want to be influencers. Not often enough do we hear enough, and like, not asking you to throw like shade at the space or anything like that, but we don't hear enough of the hardships of influencing and what it actually means to be a content creator. Like, is there anything that you could share in that sort of light? Like, we always hear how great it is to be an influencer, and we see them all in Bali doing all this amazing like travel photography and stuff, but what's it look like on the ground?
Yeah, I mean, it's so different for absolutely everyone. I mean, no matter what you're doing, you're always going to be making sacrifices at some degree to do things that you love, or, you know, things that you want to be pursuing. So for me, when I was first living in a van, traveling around Canada and the States and Europe and that kind of thing, I think I was like on about like $1,000 a month. And that included food, fuel, absolutely like everything that I was doing, like parks passes, like adventures, everything. So that's absolutely no money by the time you pay for fuel and that kind of thing. So I was sacrificing like dinners out, going on to like do like big tours and like really cool, you know, sightseeing based things, buying anything new. Like, I remember, like, I love a beer, but I remember couldn't really afford a fridge to keep the beer cold. So what we'd do is we'd go buy like one long neck of like a sour. So for me, I could happily drink a sour that was like semi-warm, and I would have that sour for like a week, like, and that was my way. That was my like little, you know, treat to myself. It was, you know, get back from a big hike or something and just have a little bit of a warm sour. Like, it sounds so grim, but I guess, yeah, what I'm trying to say is like you have to be sacrificing something, and I guess once you realize that direction that you want to go, and the things that you want to be doing and whatever it is that's fulfilling your cup, I guess, provided those things outweigh the negative and all the sacrifices, then, you know, you're still going in the right direction. Yeah, again, it's kind of a hard question to answer when it's so different for absolutely everyone.
Yeah.
It's interesting for me. Like, I'm seeing more of it in sort of my hobbies of, you know, being away in the van and fishing and stuff. And now you're seeing all the people go and start to upload their videos to YouTube and stuff. And then just on the weekend just prior now, we've gone to Wineglass Bay, which is the first time I've gone in there and done the walk up to the lookout, which isn't a great walk, but we took the kids up there and had a wow of a time. And I thought to myself while I was doing it, I thought, like, geez, it'd be cool if we could, like, you know, vlog this and show everyone that, you know, our family's going up there and doing it and how fun it would be. But then I'm like, but then you got to carry the camera and you got to carry the gear, and then you got to upload at the right time, and then you don't want to upload it the week after you've been there because everyone will follow you and whatever. Or you don't want people to know where you're going to be. You see the van people doing it. It's just something that, like, I don't have a passion for, but I can see the problems along the way of doing it and how much you're going to miss out on. Like, we had 5 kids up there, you know. If I'm trying to video everything, I would have missed that kid just fell off the chair and it was heaps funny. Like, you know, where do you draw the line?
Or off
for
the
that
cliff.
Sort of, no, they didn't fall off the cliff.
No,
they fell off the chair. But.
No, I was just saying, you might be caught up with the camera and the kids over there doing something stupid. But yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, so I don't really have a question around it. It's just like a tough thing to manage, I suppose, if you want to get into that space.
Yeah, for sure. And you kind of also have to realise that depending on the kind of content that you're creating, it takes a lot of time. So one of the main reasons I came back to Tassie was to start a trip from Tassie to Iceland over 1 to 2 years driving in a Defender overlanding camper that I built. And I was really stoked about that journey. And one of the goals for that was to have a YouTube video out every week. Now, COVID happened and all that jazz. And then I kind of realised that, doing that international based trip wasn't really going to be happening anytime soon. So I still wanted to use the camper and whatever. And I just did like a bit of a half lap around Australia and still trying to create one YouTube video per week. When it came down to it, I had a videographer with me in the camper, and we were taking 5 days to create or basically 5 days to edit a video. And that whole video was based on maybe 1 day or 1.5 days of exploring. The rest of the time was actually like working and creating to try and like edit and make this video as epic as possible. So it's a really weird thing to document because you're like, oh, I'm doing this sick lap around Australia, and I'm literally seeing like 1 day of adventures a week.
Yeah.
It's So it's kind of hard, especially when you're trying to get to that level of like epic production. Not that mine was, but
And look, I was watching, mate, from down here in Tassie and pretty jealous on the trip. But with that and that sort of understanding of it takes so much time, like what do you do, like given your lack of time, to look after your own mental health? What are some of the things beyond that being curious and whatnot that you do to look after Jess?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm lucky that like when I am actually out in nature shooting, like that charges me up. So I absolutely love that. And to be honest, I love flexing creative muscle and trying to think of different ways to capture stuff. So that still works like when I'm shooting. So I don't get tired from that, which is great. The editing process when I'm in the office, that's probably a little bit more draining. And I definitely procrastinate a fair bit, and I'm the same as every other human, I guess. But I also gym a lot. Really enjoying like CrossFit and just going and moving my body and lifting heavy things to try and, just forget about other stuff.
That's exactly my vice as well. I'm a big gym person that loves it. And just simply, we were talking about this with Josh actually last week, just towards the end. It was that understanding of mindfulness. Like often when we talk about mindfulness, we talk, people sort of seem to go straight to salt lamps and cross-legged sitting on the beach with your fingers and that old sort of meditation mentality. But for me and for many others, and we were having this yarn, was it's at the gym, it's being under a heavy bar and or trying to pick something up off the ground that's really heavy. You can't think about how shit your day was because you can only think about what you're doing there and then. And it's the same, like we talk mountain biking, like Reese with fishing and diving and all those kind of things. So, yeah, definitely that mindfulness, that keeping active and stuff is really valuable.
Yeah, 100%. Half the time with CrossFit, I feel like I'm dying. So, like, I really can't think of anything other than survival.
Yeah, 100%.
Too true.
Very good.
All right, chaps, that pretty much wraps this episode up. Thanks, Jess, for coming on. Look, anyone, if anything's been triggering in this episode, please reach out to Lifeline on 13 11 14. Other than that, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're also obviously the audio of this is on Spotify and iTunes, so feel free to reach in there. And if you have any ideas of anyone else local to Tasmania that you think would be great on the podcast, hit us up and let us know. Other than that, thank you very much, Jess. Cheers, champion. And thank you all. Take care.
Thanks, Jess.